has been visiting the doctor's office perhaps as many as almost 10 times, and plus the clinics and so forth. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to die, okay? That's for sure. And I have X-ray picture and CT scan and so on and so forth. And I was complaining to my family doctor, some pain and so on here and there. That's why we decided to have an X-ray and then the CT scan. And it showed that no evidence of cancer, so that's just good. But the problem is that right now I'm having a little sugar. It's diabetics. So we're trying to get it under control. And so the CT scan has showed a little blood vessel here, and somehow there's a little bubble, and they're afraid that it becomes an aneurysm if you don't take good care of it. Okay. So I asked the doctor, last Friday. This last Friday. I said, "What happened if I don't do anything?" He said, "Well, probably your last two years would burst, So eventually we're going to have a stent in here to bypass that little bubble. So that should take care of that. And but anyway, and Popor is her problem also because of her small stroke. And her memory is getting pretty bad, and so cheer her up once in a while, give her a call or send her an email or something, okay? And go get a little impatient with her because of her demands and so on. Yeah, but that's all right. Anyway, let me show you something here. I think this, let's see, I think it's here. Well, I'll show you this beautiful picture of me. There's a picture I want to show to you folks. Well, all in all, as you know, that I'm not as fortunate as you, Lorraine, Tina, and
Stephanie.
As well as all your 6 grandkids. See, you probably remember that my father passed away before I was born, okay? So I didn't have a father to play with, and I think he knew that I was going to be a bad boy. That's why he didn't want to see me, okay? Now, I think Tara knows this, has seen this picture before. I'm not sure John or Justin and Christine and so forth. And that is now this is my father, your great grandfather. This is my mother, and your great grandmother. And there's someone over here. He's a half brother.
Gilbert?
My mother is the second wife, and the first wife died. But before she died, they adopted this boy, okay? And he was not too much younger than my mother at the time, when my mother got married. And I don't know what the reason was. My father was in this country. Before she went back to remarry to my mother, and somehow, I think Tina knows that, Tara knows that. So she had to marry before my father gets back to the village. So actually she got married to a rooster. Rooster as a stand-in to get married, okay? I believe perhaps there is an immigration problem. That's why you have to be married so long before you can bring your spouse over to this country. Way back, you folks don't know that there is a restriction against the Chinese. Only the merchant and can bring their wife over to this country. And the restriction 1812, or no, not 18, 1860 something. Well, anyway, for Paul and I very appreciate of all you folks, your son-in-laws and daughter and grandkids, and you have been very good. But the reason I'm going to show you is this. This guy has been a bad boy. Now, as you remember, I think when he came to this country, it was probably 24. And this picture was taken in 1923, okay? Now, at that time, my father, in the old days, like in the Wild West, there's a lot of gambling joints. People like to gamble. So my father actually was involved in running a gambling joint. So the money, coming in pretty easy. So see, apparently has quite a bit of money. So my half brother, and his name Gilbert, when he came back, he has pretty easy access to some of this money. So for one time, he somehow got hold of $10,000, and he actually went for a spree, and I don't know. So I have a so-called godfather. It's very nice to us, and I talk about that. But let me briefly. When my brother and I were 4 or 5 years old, and we went back to the village, and this godfather, taking us back. And when the Japanese came to the village back in 1939, getting too close, it was he also bringing us back to this country. And probably you didn't notice that stuff, Tara. At that time, he was 71 years old already. So he was able to bring us back. And he was also responsible for getting some of the money from my father's gambling joint partners, to support us. So, well, what about this guy? He also went back to China with us and got married and came back to this country in probably 1932 or thereabout. Now, as you know, way back, even in the Wild West, but the same is true with some of the Chinese settlement in Portland, Oregon. They have a certain organization trying to protect themselves. There is a Tong War. I don't know if you have heard about that or not. So my father belonged to a certain Tong, okay? And therefore, Gilbert also belongs to Tong, that same Tong. Here is the thing that I want to share with you folks. I don't know whether Tina, Lorraine, and Stephanie knows about this. There's a little black spot in our, history. This guy, I think went back in 1933, and he and 3 other persons get involved in this Tong War thing because of jealousy of certain group and so forth. And I believe at that time they actually went ambush the owner of a restaurant owner, and before he came home, he ambushed him. He was killed. We don't know. During the trial, it was not determined who pulled the trigger to kill the guy. Okay, but somehow all 4 of them went to jail in the penitentiary. The penitentiary was in Walla, Washington, and he was actually convicted for life, really. Eventually, I think it throughout the effort of my godfather. See, godfather was way back here, is helpful to all the Chinese in Seattle, Spokane, and Portland, and so forth. Very helpful. So that prison was reduced from life to 10 years or so. Okay. And so that is the thing that that I want to share with you. So he's the one. But you all have been good, and we are very blessed to see that. And that's what I wanted to share this little black spot, and nothing to be proud of. But after he got out, and he turns out to be pretty good, and so he didn't live too long, but he has a good life, and so on. And so that's we are. And by the way, one thing too, I'm known as the number 3 son because we consider him as the first one, and Guy Bach is the second, and I'm the third. You see. And so this is a picture. It's the only time that I see the picture of him, and I think there is another picture, but. And Tara make a what do you call that study? What do you call it?
That was me. Wasn't that
Tara, you have an oral interview.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
with
fun.
Papa and me, and it's good. And Tara, what do you call yours? The something I forgot.
Ancestry Project.
Yeah, answer search contest. But maybe sometimes you share that with.
She shares me.
Yeah.
I have to use it.
So I make a
John,
little
John copied the whole thing for us.
correction, and so on. So.
Yeah, the paper we had.
And John submitted the same paper for
Now, I
us.
don't know, Lorraine, in
Bill was
Stephanie,
there.
were you aware of that? He was in jail?
John just changed the name Tara to
Did you know
John
that, did you?
I knew that story.
and turned it
I
in.
knew
I
that.
knew
You
that.
knew that?
Justin knew it.
Justin
You
knew.
knew it?
Yeah,
Justin.
Yeah, I must
I
have
knew it
mentioned it
too.
one time.
yeah. Yeah, he told us about doing the research.
Because you also have a little summary also, remember?
Right,
Yeah.
I wrote down a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
So, yeah, it's been,
So the lesson is don't kill anyone.
Don't be a Gilbert, be a
Yeah.
Gongo.
Yeah, don't be Gilbert, be an Albert.
The best of two
Oh,
worlds.
and another thing, speaking of that, he was the one that recommended my name. See, when I first came back to this country, my name is still K. Chong Lee, so I know Chong, okay? So he was the one trying to get an English name for me. The first one he came up with, guess what? One of the biggest Khan. And and then he finally came up with Albert Einstein.
It's better than King's.
So, and how did Lorraine's name came about? Football.
Some kind of cheese.
Jean was. I don't remember. But
No,
anyway.
but Stephanie's the one that's interesting.
Oh, that's supposed to be Steven.
Because after 2 girls, they were sure they were going to have a boy. And they picked the name Stephen. But when it was a girl, they didn't know what to do. So the doctor's the one that said, how about Stephanie?
They said, sure, why not? Is that true?
That's what I've been
That's what
told.
I've been told.
I thought if it was a boy, it was going to be Gene.
No, you and me.
That was for.
That was me. And then by the 3rd time, they realized that
Eugene
was the
wasn't gonna
coolest
work.
thing. No, the other family had to
Gene in the room.
Now before
It could have been Gene and Jean.
Before they crossed to all the stockings, I want to mention something about the Christmas tree. It was Justin and Max who put it up. How about that? A Chinese neighbor, the mahjong player came over, was at last Wednesday. Came over here with some mahjong money, and I told him that he saw the tree, with the gifts, he saw that. He said, "Are they real?" I said, "Yeah, we should have known."
They're fake.
They're
just there for laughs.
Yeah. So, it looked like we got the second all filled up, and I think didn't we get something in the mail for
For Christine.
Christine? Did we wrap it up?
Well, we'll find out later.
Oh, okay.